This is Ashia, just a normal kid with a loving mother who always expresses everything by giving flowers. While out getting groceries, Ashia stumbles upon a fluffy and fuzzy little yokai on the sidewalk. After he puts the yokai in a comfortable bag, the yokai clings to him. Ashia tries getting it off, but the yokai won't budge. He returns home, looking awful. His mother shows concern and Ashia tells her about the yokai, but his mother can't see it. On his way to school, the yokai sucks Ashia's energy and exhausts him until he collapses on the front gate. At the end of his first school day, Ashia wakes up to find himself in the nursery. Throughout his first week of high school, the yokai continues to suck his energy so much that people always find him lying on the floor. One day, Ashia accidentally finds a flyer of an exorcist. Desperate to get this fuzzy ball the hell off him, Ashia calls the exorcist. Surprisingly, the exorcist, whose place turns out to be by the nurse's office, is called Abeno. After Ashia begs him to rid him of the yokai, Abeno decides to put him on the waiting list but changes his mind as soon as Ashia tells him his name. Abeno instructs him to step outside. Ashia complies. After, the yokai grows much bigger and Abeno blows a beach ball, prompting Ashia to call him a jerk. Abeno strokes the yokai and nicely asks it to play a nice little game of fetch. After the yokai complies and moves away from Ashia, he feels normal again. As Abeno plays fetch with the yokai, he reveals that he's met yokais before. Yokais are lonely beings who are longing for some love and recognition. In other words, they're looking for people who can see them. The yokai saw in Ashia a friend, which is why it clung to him in the first place. In order to make him smaller before Abeno takes it to the underworld, Abeno instructs Ashia to play fetch. 5 hours later, the yokai is much smaller and ready to go to the underworld. After Abeno requests a portal to the underworld, a big gate emerges on the wall and opens. Ashia says his goodbyes and cries as he apologizes to the yokai for not being compassionate enough with it. After the little creature leaves, the gate is closed. After Ashia apologizes to Abeno and tells him he has a heart of gold, Abeno tells him to stop groveling and requests a payment of 1,000,000 yen for his services, that is, $7,000. Ashia is just a high school student and doesn't have that kind of cash, which is why he is forced to work for Abeno to pay his debt. Ashia didn't attend any class throughout his first week, which is why his mother sends his teacher some flowers as an apology. As Ashia takes his seat in class, he is surprised to find that Abeno is also a student sitting right behind him. After class, Ashia finds another yokai on the table and asks Abeno if he's going to exorcise it. Abeno wants to stay in business, so he refuses, orders him to ignore any yokai he encounters and asks Ashia to buy him a drink. After Ashia joins the queue, he finds a girl who can't move her leg after that yokai clung to it. Ashia goes against Abeno's orders and takes the yokai off her leg. On his way back to class, Ashia doesn't feel so good and an army of yokais swarm him, making it harder for him to walk. After Abeno finds Ashia crawling and calling for help, he summons his room and drags Ashia inside, thus getting the yokais off him. Those yokais were trying to drag Ashia to their big boss, so as soon as Ashia walks out of this room, the yokais will continue to swarm him. However, Abeno offers other options, the best of which is to use yokai as bait, which will lead Abeno to the yokai leader so he can exorcise him. Contrary to what Abeno has expected, Ashia accepts to be bait as his first job. Abeno then gives Ashia a necklace. Ashia opens the door to find more yokais awaiting him. As it turns out, being bait was easier said than done. Ashia is reluctant but is pushed out by Abeno, who is also soon ambushed by another swarm of yokais. The two are dragged and brought before the yokai leader called the Big Boss Scree. Wanting to get his kids somewhere safe, Big Boss Scree asks Abeno to open the gate to the underworld, which Abeno does. Now that his kids are all in, Big Boss Scree is relieved now that he can die knowing his children are safe. After all, he's anchored to this place and therefore can't get to the underworld where his children are. Ashia doesn't want him to die on his children, so he strongly suggests cutting off the roots. Abeno stops him and comes up with another solution, as he takes a glowing pill out of the necklace he gave to Ashia and has Big Boss swallow it. It might kill him, but if it's the only way he can see his kids, then so be it. Big Boss became much smaller and disconnected from the roots anchoring him to this place. After Big Boss wakes up, Abeno opens the gate again, leading to Big Boss reuniting with his kids. Big Boss is immensely grateful to Abeno as he promises to always remember his name before the gate closes. Abeno thanks Ashia for being insistent on helping the Big Boss and passes out afterwards, since he exhausted all of his energy exercising all of those yokais. Soon after, he wakes up, barely able to walk, and opens the gate to his room. The next day at school, Ashia enjoys his day as he gets to know Saga and Fushimi. But that enjoyment is short-lived when Ashia opens a door to find Abeno's room. After Abeno introduces Ashia to a yokai who expresses his emotions through masks, the yokai tells them his laughing mask has went missing after Abeno exorcised him to the underworld. Interestingly enough, that laughing mask can make whoever wears it laugh uncontrollably, which might lead to death, which is why the yokai wants it back. That is what will be Ashiya's next job, retrieving the mask. Ashiya opens the door to find himself in a temple where the mask supposedly is. The 15-year-old Zenko emerges from a nearby bush and ambushes him. After Ashiya has a hard time convincing her there's a mask belonging to a yokai in the temple, he hears Zenko's father, the priest owning the temple, laughing hysterically. Since she doesn't believe in the existence of yokais, Zenko doesn't believe there's a mask, but assumes that Ashiya is right since she wants to help her father. Looking at the laughing priest, Ashiya notices the mark on his forehead, indicating the laughing mask has possessed him, as the man is laughing uncontrollably. In a flashback, it is revealed that the priest doesn't want Zenko to own the temple after his death. After Ashiya reads to the priest from the book Abeno gave him and puts him to sleep, the mask doesn't come off his face. As Ashiya helps Zenko with the gardening, Ashiya tells her about how his mother doesn't want him to own the flower shop since it was her dream, not her son's. That means Ashiya can choose whatever path he wanted, which strikes a chord with Zenko, who breaks to tears and starts crying, feeling unsure about how she feels and why she's crying. As Ashiya tries comforting Zenko, the priest wakes up and suspects Ashiya. However, the mask comes out of the priest's face. Ashiya takes it off, stopping the laughter. The priest stops laughing and rages at Ashiya, asking him why Zenko was crying. Abeno shows up, diffuses the situation and scolds Ashiya for not getting the job done in time. As it turns out, Abeno came out of the priest's closet, from where he opened a portal, which the priest and his daughter cannot see. When Zenko asks who they are, Abeno tells her she'll know when she believes in the existence of yokais. Later on, Abeno plans on going to the Underworld to buy himself some medicine. The scroll on the wall called the Mononokean suggests that Abeno take Ashiya with him, which Abeno rejects but agrees after Ashiya convinces him since the Underworld is the best way for Ashiya to learn more about the job. Before setting off to the Underworld, Abeno gives Ashiya a pink cloak as to protect Ashiya from getting possessed by yokais. After wearing it, Ashiya feels stupid. Down in the Underworld, the two enter a pharmacy where Ashiya gets to know the owner, Kura, and her employee, Shizuku. Unfortunately for Abeno, Kura sold the very medicine he needs to another customer who turns out to be Big Boss Scree. Abeno needs this medicine and cooking it will take a while. In order to keep her customers occupied, Kura has the two help her organize the medicine and put everything in place. While Abeno goes to check something out with Shizuku, Ashiya goes out of the shop after noticing a runaway fuzzy yokai. Mistaking it for the same fuzzy yokai that clung to him earlier, Ashiya leaves the pharmacy and goes after it. After Ashiya catches it, it drops the fruit it stole and flees. Another yokai chases it but stops, mistakes Ashiya for the thief and threatens to chop off Ashiya's arm. However, seeing the Mononokean symbol on Ashiya's cloak, the yokai comes up with an amicable solution and nicely tries to mug Ashiya. But all Ashiya has in his pocket is some spare change, infuriating the yokai. Before the yokai can kill Ashiya, the fuzzy yokai arrives just in time to save him. The yokai easily flings Fuzzy to a nearby window, injuring it severely. A sudden shift in Ashiya's character occurs as he starts speaking in a totally different tone and voice, scaring the yokai out of his mind. A jar is flung at him. It's Abeno who arrives there just in time and scolds Ashiya for going against his orders and roaming the underworld alone. After Abeno apologizes to the yokai for what Ashiya did, it runs away, terrified after knowing that Abeno is the exorcist. Shizuku offers to take the wounded Fuzzy back to the pharmacy, where they can help them. After Fuzzy is healed, Kura reveals the legislator of the Underworld, Shizuku's brother, sent a message and requests to see Abeno and meet his employee, Ashiya, to size him up. Moreover, the rules of the Underworld are managed by the legislator. A Mononokean master must abide by any rule the legislator imposes upon him. The two reach the legislator, who immediately rejects Ashiya, reasoning that he doesn't have what it takes, not to mention he's a human, which Ashiya denies and Abeno then confirms. Even though Ashiya is irritating to Abeno, Abeno has full confidence in him, as he refuses to fire him as long as there's no official rule. When the legislator asks if Ashiya is willing to devote his body and soul to the Underworld, Ashiya asks why he would serve the yokai when serving the whole humankind is beyond him. Hearing that, the legislator is amused and persuaded and decides against firing Ashiya. Moreover, the legislator issues a new rule stating that the master and his employee may pass the gate to the Underworld and hires Fuzzy as Abeno's new employee, much to Abeno's chagrin, who doesn't like yokais working for him. Later on, Abeno and Ashiya are tasked to look for a ring belonging to an old lady. After Abeno and Ashiya meet up with Manjiro, the yokai who assigned them this task, they start searching the river. Not soon after, Ashiya finds the ring, which really belongs to the old lady after Manjiro confirms it. Now that they found the ring, the two try to think of a good non-scary way to return the ring to the lady without sounding like they stole it. After Abeno suggests dropping it in her mailbox, Ashia suggests explaining it to the lady and telling her about Manjiro. Abeno replies that the job must be finished with minimal human interaction, since humans can't see or hear yakais. Before Ashia drops the ring in her mailbox, the old lady comes out and gets pissed after seeing her wedding ring in Ashia's hand. Abeno spins a little yarn and tells the lady a man named Manjiro found it and sent them to return it. However, Manjiro turns out to be the lady's late husband's name, which makes her think Manjiro's ghost is having young men do him favors. Grateful, Ashia is hugged tightly for a job well done as the lady invites them to dinner. Suddenly, Abeno senses the presence of an eerie being lurking around them, but nothing's really there. Footsteps on the top of the wall vanish away, indicating a mysterious figure was watching. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe for part 2 and turn on notifications for more recap on all your favorite anime shows. Trust me, you don't want to miss out. Goodbye.